Welcome back to week 6 of college football. We're excited. Bowl teams start to become bowl eligible this week. I know I'm a new face to start the thing, but I'm going to give you a few updates before we get into today's weekly update. First, just a reminder, the member store is open. So link below in your email is a link to member exclusive merchandise that has the opportunity to use the TaxSlayer Gator Bowl logo, the Bold Ladies logo, or the Gator Bowl Charities logo. That store closes at the end of this week. So if you want to get merchandise, please log on, take a look at it. Again, it's linked in the bottom. Second, I want to remind you that we have a member social tonight, because you're probably watching this on Thursday. It's tonight at the Yard starting at 5:30. After that event, our partners at One Digital are having a special event at the Yards as well. You're welcome to attend. Just walk over. It's a taco event to benefit the Down Syndrome Association of Jacksonville. So we hope you'll join you. And before I turn it over to Greg and James, I just want to encourage you to watch the entirety of this message today, because at the very end in the Off the Field update, we're going to unveil who our secret speaker is for the October Zoom. And I think it's something you're going to want to tune into. We'll see you next week. Here's Greg and James.
What's going on, world? It's your boy at Big Game James _36, and I'm here with Greg McGarity, and this is the TaxSlayer Gator Bowl Drive to Selection, presented by Toyota, where each and every week we go over the current landscape of college football and how it relates to the TaxSlayer Gator Bowl, played here in primetime January 2nd in Jacksonville, Florida. A lot of things happen. Again, that's the beautiful thing about college football. Love the game of college football, and it will take care of you. You have nothing else to worry about. And hope your favorite team is one of the ones in there. But also, this area, for those who don't know, was affected by a hurricane last week. Hopefully, everybody that's listening to this, obviously, you came out relatively unscathed. I hope our prayers go out to those who are affected by this, and I know there are bigger things than football. But the cool thing is when something bad's happening, you do have entertainment to kind of give you a little bit of relief from all those things. A lot of people lost power here. Did you?
I did not. So I was one of the lucky ones, but certainly a lot of people, and JEA did a great job of getting everybody back up. But, certainly north of us, there's so many challenges that just keeping those people in our thoughts right now.
Yeah, having a little one that was excited to miss half a week of school. He asked, when is the hurricane coming? Like the hurricane was coming to be a guest at our house. So, but we had power and everything else. But again, so my mother and people in Tallahassee, they just got hit with tornadoes. Yeah. They got hit with this again. But again, everybody's around, and we got a chance to watch a really, really good weekend of college football. Very exciting from especially in the state of Florida. We saw you saw Miami on Friday. They started it off. You saw UCF have an exciting game there in the bounce house. You saw Florida State got a chance to visit Texas, and we'll go over a lot of these different things here going on. What were some of the games that were exciting to you, and what are your thoughts on those?
Well, probably on the SEC side, it was Kentucky beating Ole Miss. That was a big win for Kentucky towards gaining bowl eligibility status. It might have hurt Ole Miss from a college football playoff standpoint, but that game, and then Duke being undefeated at this point in time, coming back from 20 points down against North Carolina, that is really probably the surprise team in the ACC, and I just thought those two games stood out for our particular bowl and the impact it may have on us.
One of the funny things is, especially with that, when Manny Diaz, if people remember when Manny lost to North Carolina at Miami, the embrace and the talking to that he got from Mack Brown, I wonder if he returned. He might have been able to return that favor with that as well. But Duke definitely one of the surprise teams, and kind of like a reversal of fortune. A lot of people figured Florida State wouldn't be as good as they were in 2023. But would still be one of the better teams in the ACC, competing for an ACC championship. And now you look at Duke; they're one of the bottom teams in the ACC. And you look at Duke trying to vie for one of the better teams. Three wins, and they're going to a bowl game in Manny Diaz's first year, with some games that they're going to be ultra competitive with down the road. Friday, again, as I talk about it, Friday night started it. I don't like Friday night games for college. I think Friday night is meant for the last pure
Sure.
vestige of football, which is high school. But Miami, Virginia Tech had a really good game that was way more competitive. That came down to a controversial call at the end, but we got a chance to witness Cam Ward and how good Cam Ward is, how bad he can be, but he's very exciting to watch. What can that kind of do to revitalize a program?
Well, I think it gives one hope. The tough thing is you just know these are 1 year snapshots because a lot of when you're in the transfer world, you're not really building towards next year. These are one year at most, and maybe some 2 years. But the longevity piece kind of takes a back seat to what is important now. I think you see that at Ole Miss, even though Jackson Dart's been there 3 years. Certainly, Cam will come out this year and be one of the top quarterbacks drafted, I would think. But you've got a lot of dynamics in play. But winning games like that, I'm sure there were a lot of heart rates that were jumping out of folks' chest, waiting for that 5-minute period of time until the referees made the call. But certainly, games like that can either really propel a team forward to win a game like that. And at the same time, it can break the hearts of a team that fought so well like Virginia Tech.
One of the good coach speak here. Good teams always find ways to win. Bad teams always find ways to lose. And Virginia Tech found a way to lose that game. One of the things I said, Brent Price should be fired for coaching malpractice. Just clock management, different things, going for the fake. How do you actually, I'm joking, he's actually a really good coach, but when you see that as an athletic director, how do you kind of come to him and just be like, how do you pick them up? What do you do? Because again, that game was there for them to win.
Yeah, I think, first of all, it has to be 100% belief in the athletic director that that's the right person because they want to be authentic. If it's not, you want to be able to find out how decisions are made. I was always reminded during my tenure as an AD that you're always answerable to someone. And someone may ask you the question about what went on with a certain game, and you need to be sure and have that answer. It's a little uncomfortable at times asking coaches those questions because you don't want to doubt them. It's just you're trying to learn more as an athletic director. Many athletic directors never played football except maybe at the Y growing up or boys club. So you're trying to get educated and find out a little bit about what goes behind decisions. And a lot of times that puts the issue to bed because there might have been a block that wasn't executed. It might have been the right play at the right time, and one out of the 11 players just didn't execute right. So a lot of that goes into the thinking and the logic, and you certainly learn a lot during that time.
Gotcha. So sticking with the ACC, going to the game that I went to, and before we get into the game, one of the benefits of being with the TaxSlayer Gator Bowl is being a part of the Chairman's Club. And if you aren't part of the Chairman's Club, you need to hit me up or hit up Greg or email any of the good people with TaxSlayer Gator Bowl to find out how you can be a part of it. But one of the benefits is not just really good member parties and member socials, but you get an opportunity to go scout for the TaxSlayer Gator Bowl, one of your favorite teams in the ACC or the SEC. I got a chance to go to Dallas, saw SMU. First and foremost, gorgeous campus, beautiful city, beautiful stadium. Very small, quaint, but just loud and just like Mike Norvell, who just signed an extension, and himself, Mike Alford, just signed an extension himself as the athletic director. What do you talk to him about? Because when you lose like this, you have to make changes. And what do you talk to him about that? And how, if you were going to make staff changes, how does a coach approach that? Because obviously that takes money. And where does that come from?
That's a very delicate situation there because what you don't want to do is mandate that as athletic director, I want to see a change here, 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 because if that doesn't work out, then the head football coach is going to say, I didn't want to do that, but you made me do that. So it all rests with the head coach. I mean, you charge them with the responsibility to make those type decisions. And in the final analysis, the head coach's job may be in peril because you might see some things that you had to be very sensitive in talking about. It's no problem bringing up certain things. But if you're saying that I demand that this happens, the head coach is going to say, well, here the key, you run the program then. So I think it's a delicate balance. Hopefully the head coach realizes the weaknesses that you have, whatever they may be. It may be coaching, it may be in strength and conditioning, it could be in a lot of different things. But it's up to that head coach to make that decision, because you don't want that head coach ever coming back and saying, well, I was forced to do this, 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 and I didn't want to, and therefore, we're just we're not on the same page, which is a recipe for disaster.
Which very true. Well, one side is you saw Rhett Lashley and his offense and how exciting it could be. That brought them one game closer to being bowl eligible, which kind of gets to our discussion where we'll eventually get to who's going to come to the TaxSlayer Gator Bowl, and that kind of launched them. Exciting brand of football, explosive offense. Again, fun team to watch, and opportunistic defense. Going back over to the SEC, we saw really what we probably should have only seen in the SEC championship or in the playoff game. Some people feel like we may see this rematch in the playoffs again, but we saw Georgia and Alabama go at it. And really in the beginning, and one of the things that we're kind of half watching the game in the press box is Alabama came out the gate and they really they knocked the champion down on their butt. And you saw Georgia claw back, which is, again, one of the traits of Kirby Smart teams. They're tough. They fight to the end. And we saw the game really come down to the end. What were your opinions about that game?
Well, I thought Alabama was unbeatable in that first half. They clearly dominated both sides of the ball. Luckily, Georgia did score a touchdown. But, you're right about Kirby's program. He has said all the time, you never pay attention to the scoreboard. Whether you're up or down, you just make the next play. And so I think that mentality was there to where, certain things can go their way. I commend Georgia on making the adjustments at halftime to make things work, because Georgia had no answer for Alabama at all in that first half. Second half, human nature, maybe Alabama sensed that they had the game won and maybe kind of lighten up. I don't think that happened. I think Georgia started to execute. But Georgia, with 4 turnovers in a game like that, you're not going to win a game against a great team. I mean, they almost did. That's the amazing thing. But still, you can't get that poor of a start in an environment like that. And Alabama, all cylinders were working in that game. They came out ready to play, and it's just one of those knockout punches at the end of the game that sort of guts a team. But it'll make you stronger down the long run. But Georgia's margin of error is very slight now. They still have to go to Texas. They still have to go to Ole Miss. They have Tennessee at home. And in between that, they can't have a misstep. So you're going to see a lot of things play out during the year on games that maybe some of these teams are supposed to win. They better be on their best game or they'll end up losing, kind of like Ole Miss did this past weekend.
One of the other key things that we were talking about, the transfer portal and how things change, but high school recruiting is still very important, especially when you get a top player. And the things that have changed in high school recruiting, it's not really changed, it's always been there, but it's more prevalent now, is the early enrollee and the reclassification. We saw a 17-year-old really dominate one of the better defensive teams in the nation, Ryan Williams. Then we saw another freshman effectively end the game for Georgia, getting an interception in there. So again, you want to make sure you're getting those guys in the transfer portal to help you now, but having a dynamic freshman, that still definitely helps, because that kid Ryan Williams, probably one of the best wide receivers in the nation. One of the guys joked with the Reese's Senior Bowl, said this kid could be playing in our game at 19 years old. I know people who went to college at 19. So just thinking of those things, that was fun. We talked about, obviously, Ole Miss's loss. What were some other games that caught your eye in the SEC?
Well, I think you have to kind of, we mentioned the Alabama-Georgia game. I thought Texas A&M's win against Arkansas was huge for A&M. Not so good for Arkansas, because they've got an unbelievable schedule coming up. Again, it gets to being bowl eligible. A&M took a step forward there. Arkansas stepped back, and Arkansas's got to play Tennessee this weekend. So as you look down the schedule, it's going to be very difficult for teams that currently aren't ranked in the top 12, let's say, beat those teams or keep the teams that are below the top 12 right now. Having to knock off the teams in the SEC that are currently in the top 12, that's a tall order. But it can happen. But law of averages will work out to where it's going to be very difficult for those teams that aren't ranked right now to beat those teams that are ranked.
Oh man, Miles is on it right there. So we going to next week's games. We
Mhm.
actually people can see those right now. What are the games next week that we'll be looking forward to for the SEC side?
Well, I think one of the biggest games, like we mentioned, Texas at Arkansas, Missouri at Texas A&M, Auburn at Georgia. Probably the one with the most eyes will be Ole Miss going to South Carolina. What can happen there? Can South Carolina get on the road again? That's a game that they need to win to be bowl eligible because the rest of their games are really difficult. And then Florida can make a step forward by beating UCF. If we want to see Florida in contention, these are the type games for contention for a Gator Bowl berth. These are the type games that they need to win. They can't afford a loss Saturday.
And what's also interesting to those, not just about playoff berths or not even just about Gator Bowl berths, you got guys who are fighting, coaches who are coaching against guys who are fighting for their job that are actually pretty good coaches. So you talk about with Missouri, Texas A&M. Missouri obviously has high expectations for this year. Texas A&M trying to make a bowl game. Auburn is trying to get their footing. I think UGA. You don't ever want to be the. I don't want to be the guy after that kind of loss because typically what we used to say is somebody got to pay, and that next team is the one that got to pay. But South Carolina, coach fighting for his job. Lane just showed that we can be beat. But Lane can get in this offensive bag. Arkansas, coach on the hot seat. Tennessee, high aspirations with Heupel. UF. They've been trying to fire him since they got him. UCF is also trying to establish themselves as one of the big three Florida programs with two of the big three down. This could be an opportunity for UCF to kind of jump into the forefront. So obviously exciting matchups, but just a lot of interesting dynamics that are going into that. Let's go over to the ACC side. What are some of the things that some of the games that people should be looking for on the ACC side?
Well, Duke goes to Georgia Tech. Tech plays really good at home. You've got SMU at Louisville, which I think would be probably one of the big games in the ACC this week. Can SMU keep that momentum going? Can Louisville win? Of course, their loss last week against Notre Dame does not count in the standings. Obviously, it counts in their overall standing. But the ACC standings, it doesn't. So that's a game. You got to watch out for Pitt, too. Pitt goes to North Carolina, but North Carolina has really struggled defensively, the last two games especially. But Pitt's having a great year this year, so I think that Miami goes to Cal. I don't think that'll be a problem for Miami out there, but I just think there are going to be some games again. The way we analyze things are who's going to be bowl eligible first. I'm not worried about that in the ACC. You'll have plenty of teams that have 6 wins. It'll really be interesting to see what happens in the SEC. The ACC. The way Clemson's playing now, the way Miami is playing, they're on a collision course for Charlotte. If they both get to Charlotte in their current loss, they have no more losses, both those teams will be in the top 12 in the college football playoff. I feel certain.
Which would be good for the ACC, having to go from a team getting snubbed to have two teams in the college football playoff. Because at the end of the day, the way they do the revenue share, it's all about the conference when it comes to that. But the SMU Louisville game is something that I'm pretty excited to watch right now. I will watch because I am a football junkie. I will stay up until 1:00 in the morning to watch Miami. One thing I'm going to say, Miami fans are not going to believe I'm saying this. I think it's criminal that Florida State keeps getting put on primetime. They got to stop this. Like this at this point is bullying. But Miami, undefeated team, Heisman hopeful, top 10 team that has no games on primetime. Even though they're going out to California, but playing them at 10:30 p.m. isn't right. But they also have college football game day that's going out there. There's a lot of flying all the way out cross country. It's a lot of different things to see how Miami will respond to it, how these things will happen. All in all, though, looking to be another great weekend of college football. And for everybody to keep saying that the sport that they love is changing, is not exciting, I don't know how it's not exciting to you. There seems to be more and more parity. There seems to be more and more different things that are happening. And what always made college football exciting is the pageantry, and then what people are playing for. that leads to some of these upsets. And there's a lot of storylines that are going into it. So I just talked about Florida State potential, not Florida State, excuse me, the ACC potentially having two teams go to the college football playoff. We talked about Georgia. We don't talk. Talk about SEC, but we don't talk about the Big Ten here. But the Big Ten and the SEC are trying to make a big power move here. And I don't know if you've seen the news, but they're proposing for the next the next re-up of the sponsorship for the SEC and the Big Ten to each have 4 automatic berths. What are your thoughts on that? And if that happened, how does that even change the dynamic of the college football playoff?
Well, if I was a member of those two conferences, I would love it. But as of now sitting in independent sort, I don't like it at all. I don't think guaranteed spots in anything should work itself through. I mean, they've got to have some guardrails up in case you don't have 14. It's working right now. If you look at the top 10 right now, you'd have the college football playoff, you'd have 5 SEC teams, 4 Big 12 teams. I'm sorry, Big 10 teams. So you've got a dynamic there that kind of rings true right now. But what happens in the year to where you're not as strong up top as you're supposed to be? I just think everybody needs to earn their way in, regardless of what conference you're in, and let's go play. I think you're just giving those conferences that are not either the Big Ten or the SEC, you're putting them at a disadvantage. But I just think I like it to where, like it is right now, there are no guaranteed spots unless you're a conference champion. And then everything else falls out based on how you do during the season, who you play. And if they want to maybe change the committee or get rid of the committee and go to analytics, I really don't. I don't personally care. I just want to get the best 12 teams as much as possible. And I understand you've got some guaranteed spots. 5 of the 7 are guaranteed right now. If they go to 16 teams, who knows what it'll look like. But they have not made that decision when they're going to expand or if they're going to expand past the 12 teams starting in 2026. We're waiting on that news because it affects us. But I think it's just part of the discussion, and how that eventually works itself out, who knows. But it is interesting to see kind of the stance and the big power play that the Big Ten and the SEC are trying to make.
All it tells me is reading the tea leaves is that if you think expansion and conferences are done, there's no way you can ask for this unless you feel like you're going to continue to improve what your conference standing is. But this is also why it has nothing to do with if you feel like you're competitive enough to play. This is why Florida State, Clemson, and why probably Miami and some of these other people should be raising a bigger fuss so that they can be able to get in pockets. It's literally going to two, where it's kind of like the continent spread apart from Pangea. Everything seems to be going right back together to where it's two big conferences. So the only way to win a national championship is to have people who are in play for the national championship. So, but I actually like the way how you explain that. Why we shouldn't like it here in Jacksonville is because it affects our bowl game. So, but again, last weekend was good. Another great weekend coming up. Each and every week, me and Greg McGarity come here to talk to you about how the college football landscape affects us here at the TaxSlayer Gator Bowl, here being played here January 2nd, prime time. And each and every week, we'll bring you the TaxSlayer Gator Bowl Drive to Selection presented by Toyota. We'll see you guys next week.
We are back for our off-field update. Last week we teased a few things, and this week we get to reveal them. So right now we are at Yulee High School. We got to do a very special Most Valuable Teacher presentation today. We have some awesome bold ladies as our guests, and we got to surprise Mrs. Murray here at Yulee with $1,000 to use in her classroom. She has such a fantastic story. She was diagnosed with breast cancer this summer, has went through treatment, and is back at school. So we were so excited in her first few weeks back to be able to recognize her, thank her, and give her $1,000 to use in her classroom. It's a pretty credible experience. And I get to break the news of who our guest speaker is for this month's guest speaker Zoom with Greg. And we are honoring and hearing great stories from the one and only Archie Manning, who will be joining us at the end of October. There will be information on that coming out soon. please be sure you RSVP so you get the Zoom link. And we'll see you guys later in October with Mr. Manning. Have a great week.